Lesson 43, natural monopoly. Now, a natural monopoly is when one firm can fulfill the demand of the whole market and average cost continues to fall. Okay, so all we have down here, we have price. Let's see if we find a better pen. That's better. Okay, lesson 43, this is a natural monopoly. So we got price here, quantity here. It's quite a hard one to draw this one. And the reason is normally you just draw your marginal cost curve like that. But if you think about it, because the average cost is falling all of the time, then the marginal cost must also be falling all of the time. So we just draw a demand line as per usual here, and then we draw a marginal revenue line down here. And then the average cost curve continues to fall and keeps on falling. That's pretty silly because that's going through there, but got the idea. So that's average cost, it continues to fall. Now the marginal cost must be below that at all times. So the marginal cost line goes down here, and there we go. And at that point there, when we draw it on here, we must have a situation. That's the price, and that's the average cost, and that there is the average cost. Okay, so that is how you draw a natural monopoly. Now, if I was to carry this line on further, so if I was to draw that demand line down there through there, that's going to look a little bit messy on here. And so the marginal cost line covers there, and the marginal cost will still be below the average cost. Right, if you use marginal cost pricing in this situation with this particular diagram, then your price, which will be there, will be below your average cost, which will be there. So if you did use marginal cost pricing in this situation, so that's the average cost there. That's the average cost. That's the right mess, isn't it? Okay. Right, that is how you draw a natural monopoly diagram. The big thing is your average cost continues to fall all the way out through the diagram, as does the marginal cost, and then you can just draw the profit on there, which is the difference between the average cost, which is there, and the price that you're selling each good at. So that is called a natural monopoly. Now, in essence, that means if you do have a natural monopoly, then there should only be one firm in the market. So what sort of markets are like that? And you've got rail track and the energy grid in the UK, because clearly you're better off just having one overall market in that case. But you could also argue that the railway industry should also really be a natural monopoly. So that's where a monopoly is good. Okay. Diagram of marginal cost pricing. We always tend to think, don't we, in a monopoly situation, that marginal cost pricing must lead to a loss. So in this situation, MR is equal to MC, so that's the price, that's the profit maximizing position, and then we draw the ATC line on there. Now clearly in this situation, if we did use marginal cost pricing, that would be the original profits. If we use marginal cost pricing here, then the price would be there, the quantity would be there, and we would in fact still be making a profit in that situation. But the profit would not be as big if you were profit maximizing. So sometimes you can use marginal cost pricing and you can still make a profit. So that's just an example of marginal cost pricing. And you should also know, obviously, if you use marginal cost pricing, that is also the point of allocative efficiency. example of price discrimination, an easy way of drawing it. So we've got two diagrams on here, right? Price, quantity, price, quantity, okay. And we've got marginal cost going along there, marginal cost, and we've also got marginal cost going along there. Now, the easiest way of doing it is if you just draw this diagram here, which has an inelastic demand, D equals AR, if I made that, and the MR curve going down here. So therefore we're going to charge a higher price because that is an inelastic demand. And where you have a more elastic demand, so let's go for this one here, and the marginal revenue curve goes down here, D equals AR, and so we've got price there, Q there, price there, Q there. Now clearly that is an elastic demand curve. Now clearly in that situation, you can charge a higher price with the inelastic demand. The examiners always like real life examples of that. So railways, this is peak demand, so therefore you charge a higher price. Off peak demand, you would charge a lower price. You would also charge a lower price for pensioners, particularly at off peak demand, because then they're more likely to travel. So therefore they're going to gain a rise in their own welfare because they're using the product which they otherwise wouldn't use. But that is a nice easy way of drawing the price discrimination diagram. Okay, so this one is monopoly price discrimination, and once again this one is slightly more complex. The absolute key here is that you are doing a summation of the Okay, this is price discrimination more complex. The absolute key here is that you're doing a summation of the demand curves. So when you draw it, right, so we go over here, price, quantity, and if you can make sure that this demand curve is, say, very inelastic, so I've drawn this one to be very inelastic on here. That's the marginal revenue curve, D equals AR, marginal revenue, and this one here is inelastic. And then let's draw another demand curve, and this one here is elastic. So I'm not drawing these particularly neatly. This is demand, and this is marginal revenue here. Okay, D equals AR, which is marginal revenue here. Price, quantity again. Then in the third diagram, this is a summation of the difference of the two different demand curves. So you can see here you're going to have a kink in it because you're going to go here, then you got both curves together. So we go down with the demand curve here. When we hit this point, then suddenly that's going to be very flat out there. So then we draw the marginal revenue curve on there, gets down to there, and then this is going to be very, very flat indeed, and we're going to get going like that. What we then do is we draw the marginal cost curve on there, and then from there we will draw the average cost curve. You want to make sure that you're making profit from it, which we are. And so we join both diagrams together, and then from the average cost line we will draw that all the way through here. Okay, and at that point there, that is the price that we charge in this market, which is clearly lower because it's got an elastic demand curve, and the price that we charge here is clearly significantly higher, although it doesn't look significantly higher on that diagram, and that is price discrimination. That's how to draw the more complex version of the price discrimination diagram on there.